All right, hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're gonna be doing a deep dive that's a little different than usual.
Oh, how so?
Well, we're gonna be looking at, we usually look at all kinds of different like articles and studies and things,
Right.
but for this one, we're gonna be focusing on a really personal story. It's a mother's account of helping her son through addiction and then going through rehab.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's taken from like a longer piece of writing, but the excerpt that we have is just like her perspective, her voice.
Interesting. So, like a firsthand account of what that experience was like for her dealing with her son's addiction.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, we hear a lot about addiction from like the clinical side or from, people who are struggling with it themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
But to hear a mother's perspective, like the emotional weight of that, I think it's going to be really powerful.
I agree. I think those personal stories can be incredibly illuminating. They give you a glimpse into the human side of these issues.
Definitely. And in her account, she starts off by describing her son's situation before he went to rehab.
Okay, so what was going on with him?
Well, she talks about him being addicted to marijuana, for one.
Okay, so like heavy use, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah. And she mentions, like, he was also experimenting with other drugs, too. She calls them soft drugs, but, still, it's like, it's clearly a problem.
Right, right.
And she describes him as being really defiant, like always getting into arguments, having a lot of anger.
Hmm. Sounds like classic kind of teenage rebellion, but amplified.
Yeah, but, like, to the point where he couldn't focus on anything. He was getting expelled from school, like refusing to follow any rules, basically.
Okay, so this is serious then, not just typical teenage angst.
Exactly. And that's when she decided to send him to rehab,
Makes sense. It sounds like he needed some serious help. Where did he end up going?
a place called Addiction Rehab Toronto.
Okay.
Hmm.
I'm not familiar with that facility.
Yeah, she doesn't go into too much detail about like the specifics of the program or anything,
Okay.
but she does mention that he was there for a few months, from January to April of 2015.
So just about 3 months.
Right.
Okay. And I'm guessing this is where we start to see some positive changes.
Yeah, definitely. She talks about how after rehab, he just seemed like a different person. And it wasn't like, this magical overnight transformation, but like there were all these subtle shifts in his behavior.
Oh, interesting. What kind of shifts?
Like she mentioned, he started helping around the house more, like without being asked.
Okay.
He even offered to drive his younger sibling to school, which is something he would have never done before.
Right. So taking on more responsibility, showing more consideration for others.
Exactly. And she specifically says that he was a lot more respectful, like not just to her, but to everyone, and way less argumentative.
That's a huge change.
Yeah. And one of the big things she highlights is that he started going to a 12-step program.
Okay, so he was actively engaging in his recovery, not just passively letting it happen.
Exactly. She says he was going to at least 3 meetings a week.
Wow, that's some serious commitment. Sounds like he was really taking it seriously.
Yeah. And she also noticed that his focus had gotten so much better. Like before rehab, she said he couldn't concentrate on anything. But after, he was able to actually like buckle down and finish school.
That's really interesting. It really makes you think about the impact addiction can have on the brain, on cognitive function.
Absolutely. And she even talks about how his self-esteem seemed to improve too. Like he was carrying himself differently, more confident.
That makes sense. When you're stuck in that cycle of addiction, it can really wear down your sense of self-worth.
For sure. And it's not just the mother's perspective that we get in this excerpt. She also shares some of her son's thoughts about his experience at Addiction Rehab Toronto.
Oh, that's cool. What did he have to say?
Well, he talks about how he actually enjoyed the food there. Like, he really appreciated that they had home-cooked meals.
Ah, that's nice. It's the little things sometimes.
Yeah, and he mentions that they had an on-site gym and laundry facilities, which he liked. And they also organized outings for the residents.
Ah, so it sounds like they really tried to create a positive and supportive environment.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe most importantly, he talks about how much he liked the counselors there.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, he describes them as being supportive, professional, and empathetic, which I think is so crucial in a setting like that.
Absolutely. Having that kind of positive therapeutic relationship can make all the difference in the world, especially when you're dealing with something as challenging as addiction recovery.
Right. And I think it's important to note, too, that the mother specifically says that she would recommend Addiction Rehab Toronto to other families who are dealing with similar situations.
So a strong endorsement.
Yeah, and you could just hear in her voice, like, the relief and the gratitude that she feels.
I bet, yeah. To see her son come out on the other side, healthier and happier, that must be an incredible feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a really powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's always hope.
I agree. It shows that addiction is not, an insurmountable obstacle. With the right support, with effective treatment, people can and do recover.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, this deep dive has been, it's been really moving.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a glimpse into one family's struggle, but it speaks to something much larger. It touches on the complexities of addiction, the strength of family bonds, the power of empathy and compassion.
And I think it leaves us with a lot to think about.
Hmm.
What can we learn from this mother's experience? How can we,
Mm.
as a society, do a better job of supporting those who are struggling with addiction and their families?
Important questions for all of us to consider.
Definitely. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope this story has given you some food for thought and maybe even a little bit of hope.
See you next time.